nectar of your words, the praise of poets' seers, elixir to parched souls, delight to listening ears. Cleanser of all sins is great and glorious. They who spread it far and wide on earth are most generous. Om, peace, peace, peace. Good evening, friends. This evening we will be continuing with the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, and we are on page 150, still on page 150. Sri Ramakrishna is about to speak about the 7 planes, different states of, different levels, different states of mind. And so he's saying, the Vedas speak of 7 planes where the mind dwells. When the mind is immersed in worldliness, it dwells on the 3 lower planes, at the navel, the organ of generation, and the organ of evacuation. In that state, the mind loses all its higher visions. It broods only on woman and gold. So here in this, for most, what he's saying is that his mind is on satisfying his desires and his needs to sustain and maintain his and her or her body. So everything is body consciousness. Satisfying hunger, satisfying sexual urges, getting rid of your waste, all the things that are needed to maintain the human body, that's where his mind is going to dwell on. So, and that is the state for most people. And in that state of mind, the mind is restless, is easily bewildered, easily distracted, difficult to concentrate. So you're basically living on the whims of your desires. And so any idea of higher thought is not possible when your mind is in that state. So now he describes the 4th plane of the mind is at the heart. When the mind dwells there, one has the first glimpse of spiritual consciousness. One sees light all around. Such a man, perceiving the divine light, becomes speechless with wonder and says, "Ah, what is this? What is this?" His mind does not go downward to the objects of the world. Well, in order to reach this state of mind, there is the transition of going between the 3rd plane and the 4th plane. And that is where our beginning spiritual life basically starts. So in that situation, just as we feel the hunger in our belly, as we start thinking on more spiritual themes, we might feel like a heat or a tingling or like some sensation that has inspired us to think that, oh, there's something more than just satisfying one's physical needs and desires. And that can happen either by something you've read, by something you've heard, some words of encouragement, words of inspiration, something that gets you out of this feeling that you must satisfy every personal urge that you have. And that can also come through music. I once remember listening to a radio interview between a violinist and the interviewer. He is describing his career and how he studied under his teachers. And he's quite advanced, and even in that advanced state of performance, he did ask one of his teachers, how do I know when I'm playing this piece properly? And the teacher said, when you feel a tingle going up your back and you feel a sense of overwhelmed by feelings of inspiration, your audience will feel that also. And that, what he's describing is basically you're no longer conscious that you are the one playing. Your whole mind is on the music itself and performing and expressing that music as almost with as much love and with as much concentration as you can, that you are not even thinking of yourself. The body is expressing itself from all your years of practice. It's almost automatic. All your mind is thinking. Your mind is just thinking of something higher, what that music means, what is the thought behind it. You are not conscious of. You are actually not conscious of the body. It's at its very minimum, just enough to maintain playing the instrument. And the same happens when you are inspired by by thoughts, by spiritual ideals or thoughts that say, oh, this idea is very inspiring. Let me dedicate my life to this, or let me think more on this, let me study more. And as you concentrate on that, you start thinking less and less of your body. So basically your mind is being elevated from trying to satisfy all these desires and moving toward the heart. Now the thing is that as we do not have that much control over our minds, so our mind then fluctuates. It goes up and down between satisfying our worldly needs, desires, and also trying to satisfy those inspirational thoughts, those higher thoughts that make us aware that we are something more than this body. And so we are often fighting with that, and that's why we practice restraining the mind, practicing sitting down, not getting up at every urge, or trying to concentrate on a spiritual ideal, on an external object, or on an internal sound. All of that is happening between the third and the fourth planes. And then when we become established in keeping our mind on just the inspirational ideas and ideas of God, then we actually have experiences that there are also, we're told, experiences that one has on the way to reaching that. One sees light, or one has visions or deeper spiritual insight on the nature of God, on our nature. But once established, the heart, that we no longer have any desire to, we only do what's the minimum required to maintain the body, but our mind will stay at the heart level, at the fourth plane. And that's why it says, then when the mind is at that part, at that fourth plane, the mind does not go downward to the objects of the world. Nothing in the world will satisfy it at this point, but still it has not experienced the highest truth yet. So just what's required to maintain the body or one's existence, that's all you try to do. You're not going out there looking to satisfy more desires, you're not looking out to build an empire, or your outward duties are also kept to a minimum, so you can spend all your time thinking about these higher ideals. The fifth plane of the mind is at the throat. When the mind reaches this, the aspirant becomes free from all ignorance and illusion. He does not enjoy talking or hearing about anything but God. If people talk about worldly things, he leaves the place at once. So when the mind is on the fifth plane, these when he's mentioning these locations, he's talking about the chakras. These are locations not in the physical body, but in the subtle body, that where one experiences these different, where one has these different experiences. One feels that one's mind and spiritual energy is in those locations. One feels some sensation at those locations. So when his mind is at the throat or at the fifth plane, he has no pleasure in thinking about worldly things. He only wants to think about God. He only wants to talk about God. Now, in Sri Ramakrishna's case, his mind always existed between the heart, the throat, and the other 2 points, the forehead, and then also the top of the head, or the other planes of mental planes. So, and when he was at the higher planes, he could not have discussions. His body was inert, but as his mind came down, then he only would talk about spiritual things. He would never speak about what the British are doing or what's going on in India. His mind was always on how to improve one's spiritual practices, talk about God, different aspects of God, about his own experiences. There are a few occasions when he would have to get involved with worldly endeavors, especially when he would travel with Mathur Babu, and Mathur being a estate manager and knowing many important people would often have worldly discussions with them, and Sri Ramakrishna would be there and hear these things, and he would just want to leave the place and just go and cry to the Divine Mother, "Why have you brought me here to all this worldly discussions?" He found it very painful to hear that kind of talk. So, the sixth plane is at the forehead. When the mind reaches it, the aspirant sees the form of God day and night. But even then, a little trace of ego remains. At the sight of that incomparable beauty of God's form, one becomes intoxicated and rushes forth to touch and embrace it. But one doesn't succeed. It is like the light inside a lantern. One feels as if one could touch the light, but one cannot on account of the plane of glass. So when one experiences God in the mind, in the forehead, he will see whatever form of God appeals to his mind, as well as other forms that maybe even hints of a formless God, or higher thoughts taking form to basically inspire, well, actually to give ideas, to reveal different aspects of God to the devotee. But when the devotee experiences God like that, he can see God but can't touch it, and he gives the illusion that it's like this like you can see the light, but it's encased in glass. Well, that glass is, our ego is still present, and it's hampering us from fully experiencing God, becoming one with God, that glass, our ego is holding us back. That's when we experience God at the forehead. But then he says, at the top of the head is the seventh plane. When the mind rises there, one goes into samadhi. But when one experiences samadhi, then one's ego has been completely effaced. And he just merges and loses his identity in God. Then he says, then the Brahmajnani directly perceives Brahman, but in that state his body does not last many days. So for the body, in order for the body to survive and maintain itself, a sense of ego is required. But when that is gone, basically the body has become essentially dead. But still, there's still some life force remaining in it to keep it alive. But they say only for up to 21 days. However, in the case of Sri Ramakrishna or other divine incarnations, they are somehow able to connect again by having, in that state of samadhi, something in their mind reminds them about their worldly existence, that they somehow can connect back to the body and bring consciousness back to it. That sense of ego can return. And that is the case with some of the teachers like Shankaracharya and some of the other very evolved spiritual souls. But in the case of Sri Ramakrishna, he has mentioned several times that in his case, and he's mentioned, and others have said that in the case of divine incarnations, even their sense of ego is not present, even though they have brought their mind down. They completely feel that they are the instruments of God or the Divine Mother. They do not feel that they have any say or any control on their own. They feel like they are the perfect link between man and God, basically. So they do not feel that they are initiating anything. It's the Divine Mother who is speaking through them, who is working through them. So even though their mind is coming down to a more conscious state where they can discuss spiritual things, they can reveal spiritual truths or explain what God is to us in this world, they themselves feel that they are not the doers. As opposed to someone like Shankaracharya, who feels that they still have that ego of a teacher. They feel they want to do something to benefit humanity. So because of that sense of ego, they will write books or they will do this or that to basically spread the message of God. But in the case of a divine incarnation, that part is absent. They do not have any desire to write books or give talks or whatever, but they feel that whatever's happening is through the will of God. So he goes on further to describe the state of Brahma when one experiences God. Says, but in that state, the body does not last many days. he remains unconscious to the outer world. If water is poured into his mouth, it runs out. Dwelling on this plane of consciousness, he gives up his body in 21 days. 21 days is approximate. That is the condition of the Brahmajnani. And now directing the Brahmo Samaj, who he's been talking to all this time, but yours is the path of devotion. That is a very good and easy path. Once a man said to me, "Sir, can you teach me quickly the thing you call samadhi?" And all laugh. There's a story behind this because, and Swami Ramakrishna tells the story in some other part of the gospel, where a person is trying to basically sell you a trance for 5 rupees. Basically, he's hypnotizing you and making you feel really good and having all that, telling you what to think and what to, so that you feel that, oh, this is what samadhi is like, okay, but it's not really what samadhi is. So that is why everybody's laughing, because they are understanding from this description that basically for most of us, samadhi is a one-way path. We're not coming back. And it requires a lot of discipline, and it's a lot of practice. It's not something that you can just acquire quickly. And that also brings up another point, is that many people come here reading about samadhi and saying, oh, everybody wants to talk, what is samadhi? All the wonderful benefits and what the experiences are. But when you really think about it, it's almost like a very slow, controlled death of the body. And people keep thinking, oh, but then I will lose my individuality. But for most of us, we may not be able to attain that kind of samadhi because there will be this block of some sense of fear of losing our individuality and never getting it back. Because that is what has sustained us for so many years, all the way up until that final goal when you can see God as God is behind this glass. There's still going to be something that holds us back, and that is where the real heroism is, to make that final leap. And Sri Ramakrishna says that even a Brahmajnani, one who has used all kinds of reasoning and rationale, perhaps it has a stronger sense of control over their thoughts and body than, say, a bhakta. Even they will experience that sense of fear to make that final leap, to be fully absorbed in God. So what to speak of the ordinary person? So we should not take it so lightly. It sounds like a wonderful thing, a wonderful human experience, something along those lines, and we find in many ways, many of us are inspired by it, by that kind of experience, that experience of oneness with everything. But when we actually try to understand what the real implications are of that, then we might double back on and take a slower path. And that's why Swami Ramakrishna is saying, well, the path of bhakti is the easier path. And that's for all of you, when he was talking to the Brahmo Samaj. After a man has attained samadhi, all his actions drop away. All devotional activities such as worship, japa, and the like, as well as all worldly duties, cease to exist for such a person. At the beginning, there is much ado about work. As a man makes progress toward God, the outer display of his work becomes less and less. In other words, his worldly activities start dropping off. So much so that he cannot even sing the name of God, sing the name and glories of God. And then speaking to Shivanath, who's in the audience, as long as you were not here at the meeting, people talked a great deal about you and discussed your virtues. But no sooner did you arrive here than all that stopped. Now the very sight of you makes everyone happy. People now simply say, "Ah, here's Shivanath Babu," and all other talk about you has stopped. Sri Ramakrishna often tells another story to demonstrate this. When he speaks about a daughter-in-law who has moved in to live with her husband's family. She does all the duties within the household, has her responsibilities. But once she is about to bear a child, as that pregnancy progresses, her duties start being reduced. She doesn't have to carry heavy items or do a lot of extra labor. She has to take more care of the child within her. And once the baby is born, then all her outer duties have basically ceased for a while, and her only duty is to take care of and play with her baby. So all those worldly duties, those worldly responsibilities have had to be given up until the point of giving birth. And then from then on, her only responsibility is caring for the child. So just so as we approach God in our lives, our worldly duties will start to fade away naturally. It's not something you have to make a lot of effort to do. Either you lose interest in those things, or they are no longer applicable to your life. It's like we have, if we have lived in a house for many years, we have acquired a lot of things in that household have reminded us of our past, our achievements, our places that we have traveled. And then a point comes when you can no longer want to live in that house. You got to live in a condo or assisted living facility. You cannot bring any of that stuff with you other than the barest necessities. So everything that has reminded you of your past or has been important to you in the past no longer is applicable to you when you are now at that stage of life. So that happens also to us as far as our mental baggage. It's no longer required, and so we can discard it. After attaining samadhi, I once went to the Ganges to perform tarpan. Tarpan is a ritual where you actually take the water of the Ganges and then offer it to God. But as I took water in the palm of my hand, it trickled down through my fingers. Weeping, I said to Haladhari, "Cousin, what is this?" Haladhari replied, "It is called Galitahasta in the holy books." With a footnote, it means inert and benumbed hand. After the vision of God, such duties as the performance of tarpan drop away. So even though this is a ritual that he would have performed on a regular basis, there comes a point where even the body cannot perform those duties, even those rituals, and so those rituals drop away. And the same goes when it comes to singing devotional songs or chanting the name of God. So he says, in the kirtan, the devotee first sings Nitai Amar Mata Hati, which means, my Nitai, who was a disciple of Sri Chaitanya, dances like a mad elephant. As the devotional mood deepens, he simply sings Hati, Hati. Next, all he can sing is Hati. And last of all, he simply sings Ha and goes into Samadhi. The man who has been singing all the while then becomes speechless. So his whole mind has gone toward these higher thoughts that he can no longer express himself through the body. So he cannot even continue singing the names and glories of God. What to speak of carrying on religious duties. And there's no need to any longer. His mind, all these practices have taken him to the limit of human experience. He's to experience God, and everything else has fallen away. He no longer needs the support of the body or of the mind to progress spiritually. So I will stop there for now. And if you have any questions, you may ask. Otherwise, I will have a few announcements to make. Tomorrow evening at 7 p.m., Swami Brahmatmananda, who lives at our Tapavan property, will be giving an online class on the book Towards the Goal Supreme. To attend this class, it's using a Google Meet link that came in your notifications if you signed up for our notifications. I'm not sure if that link is on our website, but check it out, and if not, better to sign up for notifications. This Friday at 7 p.m., Swami Satyamananda will continue his class on the householder disciples of Sri Ramakrishna. And this week he will be covering and discussing Mahendranath Gupta, the recorder and author of the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, from which I have been reading today. And that will be part one of the talk, and I believe it will be at least 4 parts, and not more. So please attend that class if you can, either in person or online. This Saturday at 10 a.m., we have a Karma Yoga Day at our retreat property. So this is just a reminder for those that are able to attend. You can go out there, perform some selfless service, some volunteer work. This is also the Memorial Day weekend, and because many people will be out of town, Mother's Children is canceled on Sunday morning. But we will have the Sunday morning lecture, and Swami Satyamananda will be speaking on what is memory. So thank you all very much for attending in person and online. I will conclude with a chant. Om Niranjanam Nityamanantarupam Bhaktanakampaditavigraham Vai Ishavataram Paramesametyam Tvam Ramakrishnam Shirasa Namamaha. We salute that Ramakrishna who is without blemish, eternal and infinite in forms, who has assumed human form out of compassion for the devotees, who is God incarnate, the Supreme Lord, and who is most worshipful. Om, peace, peace, peace to all beings.